The rumor was that if we changed our religion, then we would wear a white star and go into a white ghetto, and it would be a little better for us. But I was not willing to change my religion because I just realized that this Christ was actually the reason why we were persecuted. So I got mad at Christianity, even though my parents raised me to respect and love Christians and Gentiles, because they kept marrying into our family. So my association with Christianity was always positive. Mm-hmm. So, but with this new system, I said I just wouldn't even think about changing my religion. And then my mother said, let me do it. And the lady came and explained to some Jewish ladies what Christianity is really about, and that I always tried to make as much noise as I could with my uncle. And then when we were in this so-called internationally protected house, I said, let's go to the place where she and her husband were assigned by Raoul Wallenberg, who was one of the biggest heroes of World War II, Swedish aristocrat who wanted to save Jewish people, and he rented empty castles. And we knew that Mary and her husband were there, so I said, let's go to her. And my mother said, yeah, well, remember how you behaved with her. You made all this noise. And I remember that in spite of that, every time she came and knocked at our door where my uncle and I were making noise, and she said, thank you for your hospitality. There was something about her that was so forgiving, so beautiful, that I thought that maybe she would not mind what I did and she would take us in. So we left the place, we ripped off our stars, and just tried to be careful that when we saw Hungarian Nazi, we would go on the other side of the road. And we stopped at a lady who was a friend, or I think a sister of this lady, for a cup of coffee. And she said at the end, Tom and Barbara, can I pray for you? So what do you tell a person who takes you in, gives you a cup of coffee? I couldn't say no. I said, well, go ahead and pray. And then she prayed in a way that I've never heard prayers before, that, dear God, be with Barbara and Tom. I mean, I had a feeling that she really believes that God is there or listening to her. It was rain and sleet and bombs fell and cannon. And there was a point where it became so bad that I said, this is suicide to keep going. So I said to my mom, let's jump into this house just until things calm down. And I didn't see that the sign on the door was Nazi headquarters. If they would have caught us, they would have taken us in there, and they would have killed us and tortured us there. That was the local murder headquarters. And I remember we entered the place, and even when we saw a Nazi 100 yards away, we would take a turn. And here I was, within 20 feet there were 30 of them. And I can see even now the face of this young fellow saying, get out of here, this is not for civilians. And he threw us out. And I believe that, again, God blinded him. So we got out, and I said to Mom, no matter what, we don't go for shelter anywhere else. And we arrived to this place, and as I thought, she was very warm, and they took us in, and there were 80 people who, and a Swedish flag was hanging outside, indicating to the Nazis this is a protected place. And we got a room and became part of this community where Mary left every morning with a big smile, saying goodbye. And for her, getting out into lousy weather, having some protective papers but not being very sure, it was an adventure for her. I now know that her faith said to her that feed these people, be helpful. And so for her, every one of these trips she made to grocery stores and bakers who kept for her all the rotten or moldy stuff, which she collected in her knapsack and then brought back into this house. And then during the day we would scratch off the mold from the bread and cut off the rotten parts of vegetables so that we would have something to eat. And then every time when she came home, she was waving from distance. I mean, she was full of joy in the lousiest, most dangerous situations. And this gave me some interesting... I was angry at her first. I felt that she's after my soul. She wants to make out of me a Christian so that I would follow her faith. But I had to admit that the way she did these trips and risked her life, one night, for example, 10 Nazis banged the door at around 10 o'clock at night. And we knew that already, even in that area, they occasionally would take people to the Danube and machine gun them in there. And so we were all scared to death because we figured, here is the moment. So Mary opens the door and she tells them, my goodness, if your mother would see how terrible you look like, come on, sit down here, I make you a cup of tea, I read you a few Bible verses, pray for you, and then out you go. She didn't even ask them why they came in. And they came in, of course, to see if there are some Jewish people. And that's exactly what she did. She made the tea and prayed with them and says, okay, now you better go home and you better have a sleep and build yourself up, otherwise, you know, your mother will think, so forth. So that again gave me a feeling that here is this little lady with faith doing something tremendously heroic. Before I even became a Christian, and you could hear the bombs, you know, boom, boom, closer. When it went away, they said, you survived another one. I was praying at that time for the safety of the American and Russian pilots who were throwing the bombs on us. So the funny thing is, here is a guy up there throwing a bomb at me, and I'm praying for his safety, because if they would have lost their lives all, they would have gone our hope too. So I am eternally grateful to America.